Good evening. I will now call to order the July 15th, 2019 meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. The meeting is being recorded. Are there any public concerns, non-agenda items? Great. Being none, we'll move on to public hearings and meetings. The first item, public meeting continued from June 24th, 2019. Request for determination of applicability filed by the October Company for the properties located at 39 and 41 O'Neill Street, map 113, lot 7.1, 7.2, and 7. The applicant is seeking a determination of applicability relative to the limits of Wetlands Protection Act jurisdiction within a specified area of the subject site. See topographical detail plan dated June 10th, 2019 as filed with the application. For this item, I need to recuse myself due to conflict of interest associated with my employer. Jay, will you take over? Let me know when we're back on B.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mark, state your name for the record.
Yes. Good evening, Mark Reed from Heritage Surveys, representing tonight the October Company. And as mentioned, we are seeking a determination from the Conservation Commission that the parcel of land that we have located at 41 O'Neill Street does not have wetlands consistent to it. I've got a larger plan that I can put out in front of the board. On June 17th, we had a site visit. Before the members present tonight were at that site visit.
Michael was there. I was there.
I was there.
Ian was there.
I guess there was only three. Come to think about it.
Okay. It's a long time ago. At this
Yeah,
point.
right. So currently, there's an existing building located on the property of 41 O'Neill Street. It has a associated business that is owned by the October Company, known as Adhesive Applications, and is shown on that site plan itself. The rear of the property retains the bike path that runs along the rear of the property, and the associated to the further east, the Luffield Street. So there were two areas, or a main area that we looked at, which is behind the existing parking area on the property itself. We had GZA, Dan Nitsky, do a wetland assessment, and he has filed, as part of our application, a report to us with his findings, and he could not find any bordering vegetated wetlands on the property as defined under the Wetlands Protection Act.
He was also at the site visit that we were at.
That's right, that's the fourth person. Yes, Dan was there, you're right. And that report is part of our application. So within that report, it's got pictures of areas. We looked at not only vegetation, but hydric soils, and found that there were no hydric soils being present on the site. As one of the indicators under the Act. So we're requesting that the Commission agree with our findings and issue a determination that there are no wetlands on the property.
Deanne, did you have any concerns with what you saw there, because you are more of an expert than we are?
No, it seemed pretty straightforward. I mean, there weren't hydric soils, so we took a couple different, dug a couple holes and didn't find anything that indicated that there were hydric soils, so.
Through the process, and also part of the application, I performed soil testing witnessed by the city engineer, Diane, the assistant city engineer here in town, and those soil logs are within the application themselves. And you've got a great deal of sand materials that were evident kind of in the borings that we took in the low area. And there were 8 test holes throughout the whole site, which is shown on the plan. And they're all sand, medium to coarse sand, gravel.
Does anyone from the commission have any questions?
Does water flow through this area that's labeled as granite headwall culvert?
No, that's an old railroad culvert. There is no water running through that area. It is collapsed and so no, we didn't see any evidence of water flowing from the site through that culvert.
It's almost protected by that granite chute. right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Redirects it away from that location.
Right. Yeah, years ago, they built that waterway smoothway or something that directs it away from the culvert. And looks like it just percolates into the ground.
And the soils in that area were looked at
Yes,
and they weren't hydric?
correct. Yeah, both by Dan initially and within his report and at the site visit on the 17th.
Yep.
And nothing on the other side of the street that would have a buffer zone?
No. We didn't observe anything on the other side of the street. On Luffield Street you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Anything else? Any questions from the audience? Ken, do we have a package for this put together?
Yes.
Does someone want to make a motion?
And see what our options
See
are.
what the package.
We never remember. So I move to make a negative determination, type 1, that the area described in the request is not an area subject to protection under the Act or buffer zone.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
All right, so moved. Is there a signature page that we can?
Okay, thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks.
You want pick that up tomorrow, or I know you're. Probably don't have copy machines up here.
No, I don't. I can have it downstairs, for you if you wanna pick it up. I don't
Okay.
usually, I'm not usually in the office
Okay,
on Tuesdays,
okay.
but I can
Leave it downstairs?
leave it downstairs.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I need to read the form to look at it. Okay. Okay, we ready to move on? Thank you, Jay.
No problem.
All right, next item, public hearing continued from June 24th, 2019. Notice of intent, Mass DEP file number 151304, filed by Beacon Solar LLC for the property located at 50 Florence Road, map 115, lots 2 and 5. The applicant is seeking an order of conditions for a large-scale solar development with proposed impacts to bank land under water bodies and waterways and riverfront area and stormwater permit. Although slight clarification, the design has been modified to eliminate all work in riverfront area? Is that still
Yes.
true?
Yes.
Okay. So,
Thanks for pointing that out earlier.
good
Thank you.
evening.
My name is Brad Saunders. I'm with GEI Consultants, here this evening representing Beacon Solar LLC for the project proposed at 50 Florence Road. And at the last meeting, we had a number of questions that were raised and requests. I just want to briefly go through those, and then I would like to ask for an extension of the hearing for a specific reason. We also had the site visit a week ago, and a number of you attended. It was a nice night, a little dusty, but
2 weeks ago.
everyone was able to see everything.
What was the date?
July 1st.
When you're having fun, right? So the first the first question that I recall that was brought up was there was a question of how much work is being proposed within the buffer zone. We have proposed to do some work within the buffer zone, that being the 100-foot zone, but as a minimum, staying back at least 25 feet from all wetland resource areas. There's about 13, almost 13 and a half acres of buffer zone on the property. Of that, work will be within 1.3 acres, or a little less than 10% of the buffer zone. Most of that work is the driveway itself, where it approaches and departs from wetland crossings. As we discussed at the last meeting, all of that roadway work is within the footprint of the existing driveway on the property. There's also about 12,000 square feet of buffer zone that would be affected by the vegetation screening that we're proposing. Again, for Maxine Circle right in this area, that's all part of that 1.3 acres. But about 12,000 square feet of that is for the vegetation screening. Then the big issue that came up was the need for culvert replacements on the site. And for those culverts that do need to be replaced, we were requested to provide the information specified in the Wetlands Protection Act regulations for stream crossings in Massachusetts in compliance with those standards. So the first thing we wanted to do was examine each of the proposed crossing areas to see whether or not we actually need to replace any of those culverts. So last week we had the project engineer go out to the site and conduct an inspection and then analyze each one of those crossings to determine whether or not there was a need to replace them. So the first step was to find out what would be the basis for the analysis. And for that, we contacted the fire department to find out what size equipment they would need to bring in the event that there's an emergency. We were told by Wayne Henneman, who's the deputy fire chief, that the largest vehicle they would need to bring into the site would weigh 37,500 pounds. So using that as a baseline, we took a look at each one of the culverts. I have 2 copies of the report that I'll leave with the commission, and I just want to briefly go through what the results of those were. There are actually 7 culverts within the proposed driveway, which again is in the footprint of the existing driveway. The first one is the one that you encounter right here, coming in first off of Florence Road. That one is a non-standard culvert. So of the 7, we're actually going to need a little more time to study that particular one. That is a concrete box culvert. We're not sure if it was cast in place or whether it was cast and brought to the site. It's a 36-inch wide culvert and has a round opening to it. So we're going to need a little more time to study that one to actually find out what its capacity is to handle the loads. Moving in, there are 2 culverts at this location right here. One is a 4-inch diameter PVC. The other is a 2.5-inch diameter PVC. Both of those are fine for, given the soil cover over it, and the analyses that were done show that those would be fine without any replacement. The next one, which is now the 3rd culvert, if you will, is located right here. That one is an 8-inch PVC pipe. Also, the analysis indicated that that will not need to be replaced. The next one, right at this location here, is also an 8-inch PVC pipe. Also does not need to be replaced. Location number 5 is right here. And that one is an 18-inch polyethylene pipe. That one does not need to be replaced also. There's almost 3.5 feet of cover over that pipe. And the last location is location 6, which is right here, just before you get into the open field area. That one is actually a 12-inch ductile iron pipe. That one is clearly sufficiently strong enough, has the capacity to handle the loads that are anticipated. So the only one that we still need to really spend a little time on is this very first one. And we're hoping to be able to be back here in a couple of weeks with an answer on that. Again, here's the copies.
Thank you. Jess, can you make a note of the report and date and title for the minutes? Thank you.
We have a meeting with the planning board tomorrow evening. And I know there are some issues regarding the proposed plantings for the screening. We're also taking a look at some alternative species for there. I guess during the site visit, while visiting with some of the abutters on Maxine Circle, it was pointed out that the weeping willows that are there on their properties seem to do a very good screening job. So the question is, should we be taking a look at something like that versus the junipers and cedar that we had proposed? That may also get to the question that the chairman here raised last time about the suitability of the plants within the buffer zone.
Okay.
And the amount of groundwater that they'd be exposed to. Clearly, the weeping willows can handle that quite well, so. They also grow very fast.
True.
So, in fact, I was looking up some information on them today. They can grow over 2 feet in a year. So, I knew they were fast, but I didn't know they were that fast. So that's what we have this evening, and again, would like to just request a continuance to better resolve the issue of that first culvert.
Okay, before we do that, I just have one question for clarification regarding the July 15th report. This is from a structural load-bearing perspective only and does not address any hydrology and hydraulic analysis?
No, because we were looking at whether or not we needed to replace any.
Okay. All right. And then our next meeting is July 22nd. Actually, before we do that, are there any other questions from the commission? Okay. No? Ken, do you have any questions, comments to add right now?
I did share with the commissioners a memo from the city planner in regards to photos. So it's just, that's part of the official record.
Excuse me, in regards to what?
The city planner offered to the commission, in advance of the next Conservation Commission, could you please provide these photographs taken from Maxine Circle associated with the solar project?
Photographs.
I think there were photos used for the renderings.
Well, I also took some photos, so, yeah.
We're happy to say.
And then there was a submission from DEP that the commissioners had access to, which did provide some comments, which I'm sure will be addressed in a future hearing.
So just to be clear, if you could address these point by point in writing to the commission for our records, that would be appreciated. Okay. So our next meeting is July 22nd,
A week from tonight.
a week from tonight, which obviously you might not prefer. Our first August meeting
August 12th.
is August 12th. Would you like to be continued to August 12th at 6 p.m.?
Yes, please.
Okay. Is there a motion to
Motion to
continue?
continue to August 12th at 6 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, next item on the agenda, public hearing continued from June 24th, 2019. Notice of intent filed by the City of Easthampton, Mass DEP file number 151303 for the intersection of Ferry Street, Pleasant Street, and Lovefield Street. Applicant is seeking an order of conditions for work related to safety improvements, including street parking and a shared use path connecting Ferry Street to the Manhan Rail Trail and a city stormwater permit. Good evening. Could you reintroduce yourself, please?
I'm Stephanie McDonald with McMahon Associates. Eugene Gabriela as well with McMahon Associates. We're here on behalf of the city, again, to talk about the intersection improvements of Ferry Street, Pleasant Street, Lovefield Street. Some of the commissioners were able to join us on site at 5 today to check out the site. Since the last meeting, we've just responded to a couple of your comments as well as to DEP's comments. The biggest thing being there was a discussion about the use of pervious pavement. So we further discussed that with the town engineering department, DPW, and they decided that they would be more comfortable maintaining a grassed area or pervious, other than pervious pavement. So we went ahead and made those changes, which include basically everything is as it was last week, where just quickly I'll go over. The green area was existing impervious area, that's new pervious area, and the orange was existing pervious grass area that's now pavement impervious area. So this area, this buffer area right here, still is remains pervious. It's just gonna be grass with plantings, potentially some mulch areas, and then there's a small section down here that is kind of too thin to have grass growth, so it will be impervious. It will remain impervious.
Can you point to that again?
What that does is, the pervious pavement basically provided a storage area to help attenuate the small increase in impervious area throughout for the site.
Stephanie, can you point to the area? Jessica wants to see which area you're.
This area?
Oh, okay.
So there's a small, it's less than 2 feet wide, so we're gonna keep that like a concrete sidewalk, just to extend it instead of having grass die. So without the pervious pavement, there's a little bit less storage for stormwater just to attenuate, which just increases the peak rates from pre versus post. So because this area is a redevelopment, we've met that now standard to the maximum extent practicable. And I've provided an updated summary table and hydrocad calculations for you.
Was that provided in the response? I didn't print out that was
Okay.
a 36-page document, but I did print out the two responses that she provided, both to DEP and to the city. But obviously the report will supplement her comments.
Yep, I have a copy if you'd like it.
Could I see? Thank you.
So this is the summary table that was taken from the written report, and
Okay.
then the calculations
Back up.
are.
All right. So prior to, with the pervious pavement in place, there was no change or reduction?
Correct. There was a reduction. I think it was 1/100th and the 100. I mean the 2-year, and then a little bit more throughout.
Okay.
I can actually give you the exact numbers.
So we're still talking about very small
Yes.
amounts.
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments from tonight's site visit?
Yes and no. Michael, I, and Julie were there.
I had asked a question at the site visit about removal of vegetation along the area where the wall is going to be repaired. So one of the questions I have is how much vegetation is going to be disturbed there, what's going to be put back in its place. I also noticed that along that whole length, there's a lot of invasive species, and I'm not sure, I can't recall if there's an invasive species plan included with the proposal.
So I double checked the picture, and yes, we did see a lot of growth, which wasn't there originally. Again, if you look at the section that was included, that it is a pretty steep, like 1-to-1 wall. So yes, so in order to rebuild and put that wall back together, again, this is the existing wall. So. And this is our proposed wall right against it. And in this, Julie's talking about in this section, there's about 33 feet that we're going to actually have to build a retaining wall on our side, whereas everything else is just going to be tile driven. So this small section in this area will have this cantilever area, and this section will be rebuilt because that's where most of the blocks are in. So yes, the vegetation will be disturbed, and again, it's hard to quantify because from the picture and from this, it looks like it's 1-to-1, so it must be growing in between and just where the blocks are missing. But that is the extent of the disturbance to that area. And again, it's just to rebuild the structure. just the look of it and the, so it's not falling in.
So will vegetation be put back there, or are the walls going to be so close that there's not going to be any?
Correct, so I
Soil
think
left.
the vegetation is just going through the holes, in the area. We don't call for any vegetation to be put back because we weren't expecting, I guess to disturb it was like a sloped area because it is we're coming up right against the side. You see the railing?
So the remainder of the sort of frontage of your new path will have the vegetation that's still there, but then there's gonna be a 30-foot section where it's just
60.
wall,
Oh, 63 feet.
Water.
Sorry, 63 feet, yes.
60.
So that other section is here where this is the existing wall, this is the slope down. And then, this is the existing guardrail that we saw, that's to be removed, just the guardrail part. And then, the new wall, not retaining wall, and then the new, pedestrian rail on the inside. That better depicts it, I think.
Do you have another question about that?
Not at the
Follow-up comment
moment.
yet? Okay. I have a question. Where you're building the new wall behind the existing wall, is there any concern that that disturbance is going to cause the wall to collapse toward the pond?
No. The, structural engineer he's aware and, has looked into this, and I believe that there's going to be some ties, to the existing wall to maintain its integrity.
That's within that 63 feet
Mm-hmm.
where the new wall is being built. Those will be tied to the existing granite blocks that fell.
How will it be supported during the period where they're excavating behind it
That's,
to install the new footings?
I don't have that answer for you. I can, see if they've thought that through.
The primary concern being during construction with that disturbance behind the existing wall, that change in forces could result in failure in the opposite direction, not into the excavation, but.
I believe that's a means and methods discussion as to how the contractor wants to do it. The only thing is the construction specifications are to specify the way that it needs to be supported, but the way it's gonna be supported, we can't really say right now.
Right, understood. My concern is that during construction, if the wall were to fail, then that would change the permitting.
Or if it needs to be supported from the side of the resource area, that would also, I think, change the permitting.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
in discussions with the structural engineer, he hasn't said anything to that effect. Clearly, they're the experts in the walls, and I'm sure this is not their first. One side supported walls, and I'm sure they have specifications.
The other concern being, I guess the caveat there is that if there were means and methods proposed that changes the footprint of work relative to resource areas, a permit can't be amended to increase your impacts to resource areas.
Right.
So that's always the catch-22.
And they're
With-
aware of that going into it, as we've discussed with them, and because they know we're coming for conservation and the, I guess, what we're going for. So we were told everything can be done on this side and not in the resource area.
Okay. Then the burden's on them.
Can we, in this case, require invasives control along
Yeah.
that area?
That can be a condition.
I think it would be appropriate.
Okay. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns from the commission? No, being none, are there any questions, comments, concerns from members of the public? All right. Commissioners, what say you? We have a recommendation for a special condition. Do you want to discuss any further, or make a motion and then discuss potential conditions?
Let's discuss the conditions and then just
Okay.
roll that up. Was there any protection needed for like erosion barrier? Not really, because of the way the wall is in most of it,
Thought you had proposed, there's erosion control barrier along the length of it?
Yes.
or partial areas.
For as much as we can. Again, we're showing it at the extent of the wall, so it's going.
Is it one of these?
Those are the new.
So you have catch basin inlet protection for the down gradient of all disturbed areas and
Yes.
compost, okay. Compost filter tubes or straw wattles?
Compost filter tube.
Thank you.
So it's this, there's two dark lines, but one's the limit of work, and then on the inside is the
Mhm.
compost filter tubes, which are proposed to go on the outside of the disturbance, on the outside of the existing wall.
Mhm.
Along through here, any downgrading areas, there's a little bit of, potential opening there.
So it goes the full length?
Yes.
Okay, because the lines are close together here, so it wasn't clear to me.
Yeah. And up around.
And so those are proposed to be located where relative to the existing wall?
On the, I guess, outside of wherever we're disturbing, so.
On the water side?
So they on the top of the wall, or are they?
So I'm guessing it would have to be, I would assume that you would prefer it on the water side.
The down gradient side from the work is there sufficient space there? Those who are at the site visit?
couldn't
You
see
can't really
much, it's
see where
just
the
a
wall
jungle
is,
right
it's
now.
hard to know.
On the
Because it's so overgrown?
Yeah.
Side,
Couldn't
which,
With invasives.
this is where we would get into
Okay.
that, where it's that one-to-one. So I guess,
So most of the way there is space. This line, might be hard for you to see, but that line is the bottom of the slope.
Okay.
And then it gets very close.
So you think there's some
before the
room
ditch.
in most of the areas to get between
Most
there?
of this, there is space.
except where we have that wall.
Right. Yeah, you couldn't see any of that with growth.
So, is it clearing or clearing and grubbing? The vegetation?
There's no clearing or grubbing.
There's no clearing or grubbing. So they're gonna get into an area that you can't see to put the compost filter tubes in.
It's not gonna be easy without removing some plant material.
Do you think they can install them without removing any of the vegetation there?
I think
Is this the
hardest part
concern?
is just to literally walk there and get on it, to stake it. If you're doing it from the one side, you know, just because of, we saw poison ivy and growth. But I guess depends when you do it. If we do it at the earlier season, you can
Mhm.
see a lot more. That's when the pictures were taken. You can,
Mhm.
you know, see the area. We went and saw the two outlets. We just didn't see the third one because we saw poison ivy. So I personally didn't go and look for it. So I feel like if it's done at the right time earlier in the season, it's easy enough to put that, a lot easier than right now. And that was a month ago.
Right, you thought this project wouldn't start until spring anyways?
So the current schedule is for it to go out to bid in September, with hopefully notice to proceed October 15th.
Okay.
So we don't expect much, if anything, to happen before the next spring.
Okay.
Why would they not work on it in October, November, December?
Well, if it's paving, it's too cold to
Okay.
do it, so you know, they can't,
Mhm.
well, our guess is some of the utility work might happen within the roundabout, so that when spring comes, they can lower and raise whatever they need to do. So that spring comes and they can actually start excavating and building the circle itself.
So, does anyone have further recommendations for special conditions beyond those that we normally capture in our orders?
About the
Invasive
control,
species.
Invasive
control.
species control, which, it seems like the limit of work currently does not go to the bottom of the slope, correct?
Correct.
But the invasive species control ought to, because otherwise it's pointless.
Mhm.
So I don't know if we can kind of have it extend beyond the limit of work, or is that tricky?
Yeah, we can do that to the
Okay.
upper boundary of bank.
Okay.
And it would only be on that, the slope alongside Lower Mill Pond.
Mhm.
For invasives.
That's pretty much what the area is, right?
Yeah, all of that, right.
And then to, there's like a wooden structure stage here.
There's a platform of some
Yeah.
sort,
We honestly, we didn't look closely up there, so I'm not sure what the vegetation was.
but we can just require that
All of
the
that,
area
yeah.
be inventoried for invasive species and that a site-specific invasive species control plan be presented as a pre-construction requirement. With the change from pervious pavement to grass, is that included in the O&M plan? The-
Pervious pavement hasn't been taken out, but I can make that change and
Okay.
send it.
And did you have a chance to look up what the plants are going to be?
I
That are
didn't.
proposed?
I actually didn't bring that sheet with me today, but it is in the full plan
You have it,
set.
Ken?
It should be
Do you know what sheet off the top of your head?
should be towards the back. Is it on the
It's
detail sheet?
part of the detail.
Are we looking for a list?
Yeah. Schedule.
This is not a complete set. It's select sheets. As there was a complete set provided?
There should have been, yes.
Okay. Do you know what?
Well, actually, I took specific sheets, so you're right. Because the whole set has typical sections and a lot of the
Mhm.
roadway stuff in there that were not, so you might not have the landscaping plans.
Okay. So, just for the minutes, can you note the following sheets that the commission was provided? Ready. 6, 7, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 19 of total sheet number of 28.
So what's the date on those?
They were stamped June 10th, 2019. So I think it would be beneficial to have the additional sheet or sheets. Give those back to Ken before we separate them from the file. And I think prior to commencement of construction, I would want a full set of the construction drawings provided.
The whole set.
Yeah. prior to commencement of construction.
Oh.
So as a pre-construction submittal, as opposed to now when they're
Okay.
potentially, yes. Unless others feel differently.
No.
But it would
Reasonable.
be beneficial to have the landscaping, like the sheet with the landscaping details prior to, as part of this process.
Yes.
Okay.
I can send that to you tonight.
Okay. Great. Anything else? So, how does the commission want to do? Any other? No? I'll open it to public.
Sure.
Are there any questions or comments from the public regarding this project? Okay, being none. Do we want to make a motion to close or continue to next Monday so we can get the additional information?
So let's make a motion to continue to the 22nd at 6 p.m.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay. Next item on the agenda. Public meeting, request for determination of applicability filed by Donna Lucier for the property located at 241 Hendrick Street, map 178, lot 6. Applicant is seeking a determination of applicability for the removal of trees within a specified area of the subject site within riverfront area. Is there anyone here for this filing? Could you please join us up front? Thank you. Jay, you did a site visit at
I
this
did a
location?
site visit. I can't tell you when that was, but I can find it. It was a while ago.
Yep.
And there were some trees that were identified. They were tagged. I did send Jeff photos, or maybe even Ken's photos of those trees.
And I also did photos and gave them to Ken.
Yes,
If-
so,
If you would just identify yourself for the record?
Donna Lucier, 241 Hendrick Street.
Thank you. So, can you share?
yeah, so, Miss Lucier did provide photos. I forgot to print out Jay's photos.
Okay.
So in that packet is Miss Lucier's photos,
Okay.
along with her application.
So can you, Ms. Lucier, could you describe the area where the trees are to be removed? Is it, so
Well,
it's,
it's in the photos, but it's to the, looking at the house from the street, to the left of my house. Right to the
Is-
left, there's two very large pine trees.
are these the white marks?
Yes, those
Okay.
are the marked trees.
Thank you.
And behind that, right behind the two pines,
Mm-hmm.
there's also a pine and a maple. And the maple, and it's hard to see, and I don't know if it's in Jay's photograph or not, but it's hard to see, but it's heavily leaning into a spruce.
Your photo shows that.
Oh, it does?
It
Oh,
does,
okay.
yep.
Into a spruce and a cedar tree.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you read what I wrote, but
They're sentimental. Yes.
it's, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm trying to save those two trees.
Okay. So how would you have them cut and leave the stumps?
No, oh, yes.
The
leave-
stumps, so the
yes,
stumps of the
yes,
trees that you want to remove would be
Yes.
left in place.
Yes,
And
but
there's
everything else would be taken out. All the debris,
Of- everything up from there, yep.
Everything but the stump.
And taken away.
Yes,
So there on the site plan that shows your house and the trees, there's a red line.
yes.
What does the red line indicate?
That's the
missed that.
brook, I think. That's Broad Brook.
There are some blue lines for Broadbrook, but there's a red line here, Jay. Do you?
That may have been
100-foot mark.
100 foot
Thank you.
from the Broad Brook.
Oh, that's right. the
Okay,
100-foot
thank you.
mark.
Because the trees that are being taken out are between 100 and 2 feet, 100 and 200 feet of Broad Brook. They
Okay.
weren't within the 100 foot, so I think that was kind of a Jeff put that line in there just to,
As a gauge.
he didn't contour it to follow the river, he just kind of,
He took it off.
Took a flat,
That's
the
fine.
highest
I
point,
mean,
so.
it's
they're
still-
well outside it,
Yeah.
so. And that's why it was a request for a determination and not a
It's
notice of
that in the
intent.
first 100 feet of riverfront.
Per you.
Per me. So, and these are essentially part of your yard.
Yes.
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 So, does anyone else have any questions, comments, concerns?
I do have a question.
Okay.
If I get this permission, how long do I have to?
This determination is
asked-
valid for 3 years.
That's, okay, thanks.
So,
And I asked Ken and he thought 3 years, but
Yes.
he wasn't sure.
yep.
At least I think at the time you weren't sure, Ken. He said 3. Thank you.
You're welcome. So.
Will the removal change the canopy cover significantly, Jay?
Well, one of these trees is leaning over other smaller trees, so yeah, the canopy might be affected, but there still was other growth underneath that would, there's gonna be no bare, wide open area created by this.
And that's true of the pines as well?
I'm gonna stay true to the pines. There was enough undergrowth that as soon as the sun hits it, that's gonna take over.
It's not gonna expand the yard. I don't
No,
think.
it doesn't really, it's not regrading or anything like that.
Okay.
Any questions, comments, Michael?
Nope.
No? Any other comments?
Nope.
Questions, comments from the public? Okay, would anyone care to make a determination? We're in a resource area, but,
There's no special
There's-
conditions.
right, I mean, that's for buffer zone,
Okay.
so it'd be a -2, in a resource area, but will not.
I move to issue a negative determination type 2, that the area, the work described in the request is within an area subject to protection under the Act, but will not remove, fill, dredge, or alter that area, and therefore said work does not require filing of a notice of intent.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Can I see
Want to start signing?
Should we check it out? too?
Oh, that's even better.
and then can I have that?
Yes.
Oh, take that out. Do you want to pass it down that way? What is it? Huh. What's your husband's name?
Mike,
That's it?
is that where the M came from? Brothers.
Your mom. It's all right.
The first time.
I need to get up. Too much ice cream?
So, Miss Lucier, I'll have your original copy at the planning office starting tomorrow.
Downstairs.
Yes,
Yeah.
downstairs.
After tomorrow.
Mhm.
What time is that yet?
So you can just pick it up.
1, 2, 3.
Okay.
So you have
And now, will there be an additional, looking at the project after it's done?
No.
No, okay.
You just have that, and you'll probably want to share that with the person cutting your tree,
Mhm.
because that's the,
Yes, oh
That's-
yeah.
yeah, that's what he'll
They're the
want.
ones that asked for it.
Right,
I wouldn't have been
exactly.
here.
Good for them.
So it's for them.
They get a gold star. Wow.
Oh.
All right, so, and you'll have the paperwork ready to go for pickup, or?
yep,
Okay.
starting tomorrow.
So you're all set?
Thank you.
Thank
All right,
you.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda, public meeting, request for determination of applicability filed by Eversource Energy for the property located on Liberty Street, map 145, lots 20 and 22. Applicant is seeking a determination of applicability for work related to the abandonment of monitoring wells within the buffer zone. Would you care to recuse yourself?
Due to a conflict of interest with my employer, I recuse myself.
I also am recusing myself due to a conflict of interest with my employer. Anyone else? We'll shout when they're done.
Hello there. Could you state your name for the record, please?
Hi, my name is Kate Wilkins. I am here for Ty and Bond on behalf of Eversource Energy. Request for determination of applicability was submitted a couple weeks ago. I have a couple of supplemental information handouts, just because the previous application was just submitted with a form and a plan. So we just want to make sure that there's enough for everybody. We just have a figure that was included that identifies the wells on an ortho photo versus just the site plan, so you can kind of see where everything is located, and then just a little bit more of a description on the access and overall process. So in the description that was actually in the RDA, it was pretty straightforward. So this is a previous manufactured gas plant site right around 19 Liberty Street. We actually have some requests for a certificate of compliances to close out a few ordered conditions that were put on for the installation of these wells about 20 years ago. So through that process with the installation of the wells, the whole MC process moving forward, ongoing monitoring has happened. And at this point, there are 4 wells that are located on the property that are no longer showing any signs of change or need anymore under the MCP. So the 4 wells that are proposed to be removed or decommissioned are well number 4, well number 8, well number 9, and well number 10. So these are all located on the north side of Liberty Street. There's a large pond that's on the property as well, and then it's just to the west side of Lower Mill Pond, and Broad Brook kind of goes between the 2 ponds underneath Liberty Street. So as part of the decommissioning project, it's just going to be an abandonment in place. So they'll just fill the existing 2-inch wells with grout using a Tremie pipe, which sticks down into the well. They'll fill the well up to make sure that there no pore spaces, no holes left over. As they pull out, they'll fill the hole, and then remove kind of the top portion from the ground up of extra piping, remove that from the site, and you'll have a decommissioned well.
So nothing will remain above ground, correct?
Nothing will remain above ground. It'll be all filled in, and it'll just be seeded and mulched over, just so it looks exactly like the rest of the surroundings. Access will be all from Liberty Street. The existing ground cover is kind of a vegetated mix of herbaceous, shrubby, limited, if any, clearing of vegetation is proposed. It's pretty accessible, so they can get to all the locations with the equipment without any ground disturbance proposed.
Is the grout put in with some sort of tube or pipe, or are they?
So there's this kind of, it's called a Tremie pipe, which kind of has a larger portion at the top, and then the pipe goes down into the well, and so they'll just pour into the larger kind of funnel.
But are they mixing something at that site, or is it coming from a truck? And
it's coming from a truck, so it's already
Okay.
pre-mixed and all put in there, and they'll just pump it down the hole.
And is there any chance of spillage as they're moving that pipeline from one to another?
I guess there could be a potential, but most of the time it's pretty, put it down.
What is the
turn it
actual
off.
material that they're putting in
It's
there?
a concrete
Concrete
and
to
bentonite
plug the-
material.
Okay.
So once it's hardened, it's pretty inert.
Oh, you were at the site visit, right?
Yeah.
You were there too, okay. I know that one of the pipes that was sticking on the ground looked like it got hit by a mower or something. It was kind of broken up, and no issues in trying to remove that, fragmented or.
Nope.
can't remember what they said about how much of the pipe gets left in the ground.
So I'm not, honestly not sure how far down they go. I know they're down to the groundwater, because that's where they were
So there's like
monitoring.
remove the top 3 feet or something?
It's usually about 12 to
20
24 inches
okay.
that they'll remove from the ground surface down. They may do that, or they may just cut it at the ground surface and remove everything
Yeah, the
above
person
that.
that gave us, toured with us, said they were gonna remove some amount below the surface, that's all, they don't remember exactly.
Standard is 12 to 24 inches.
And how does that require some amount of excavation to get down and cut it off?
A small amount, usually they can kind of, it's hard to explain. They can usually just kind of put down a cutter and it just cuts the pipe and pulls it
On
out.
the inside?
Yeah.
Okay.
Michael, any questions? Any other questions, or you have not really seen the site, you're familiar with it? Are there any questions from the audience? Would someone like to make a motion?
Ken, can we have conditions at all with a negative type 2?
I believe you can. I've seen conditions, usually they're related to erosion control.
I'm just wondering if it would be worth having some sort of condition for cleaning up of any material that would
Okay.
get spilled on the surface.
That's removed by hand and taken off the site, something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we think we can do that with it too?
As far as I'm concerned, we can. That's not good, but
What's that?
I don't know the answer to that.
I think 3 is the only one you can
Three-
really
yeah, 'cause
condition.
3 has
3 is
a-
the only one that has a space to write in.
Right,
I'm
so
not
that's
opposed to
why it's gotta be
condition.
3.
But 3 is for a buffer zone project.
Okay.
Maybe in the minutes, we can just reflect that.
That it was discussed and
Yeah,
agreed
that
to.
was
Okay.
And we'll pass it along to and we can CC you for our correspondence over to our client and saying
Sure.
that this is what the commission had requested, so.
Sure. So in that case, I will move to issue a negative determination, type 2, that the work described in the request is within an area subject to protection under the Act, but will not remove, fill, dredge, or alter that area. Therefore, said work does not require the filing of a notice of intent.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
So the condition would just be that any material left over from filling the wells, if it's outside the
Or
wells,
any
to remove it.
spillage or whatever, so
Okay.
it's just removed from the site.
Sounds good.
You want to sign in?
What's the other one?
Sign in. This is the rest of the packages.
Thank you.
Ken, do you want me to make any sort of special note beyond just additional condition? What the additional condition is? Do you want me to like bold it or anything?
No, I don't think it's necessary. We'll share that with the applicant. We'll print out a copy, with it. Do you want me to call the chair?
Yeah.
Just moved it. I think he said reaching
You didn't take care of effigy, did you?
No, sorry.
No? Okay. All right, next item on the agenda, public meeting, request for determination of applicability filed by Arcadia Wildlife Sanctuary for the property located at 127 Combs Road, map 107, lot 1. Applicant is seeking a determination of applicability relative to the construction of a teaching pavilion within the buffer zone. Good evening.
Hello, I'm Jonah Keene, I'm the director at Arcadia, and it's our 75th year.
Congratulations.
Which is very exciting. So we're doing something about it, we're building stuff. So we're proposing a teaching pavilion to expand our capacity to be able to serve more people, have more space. And it's mostly on already altered land there. We have a grass field that is sort of, if you're looking at the visitor center, it's off to the left there. That we mow regularly. So it's going to be there, although at the very edge, so we'll be pushing back a little bit. So we are proposing to restore that site off that slope that's coming down from the lawn there. So right now it's kind of a mess of invasives, and we're looking to make it a little more native. So the plan is to restore that whole stretch to some native plants as a part of this project. It's relatively little groundwork, but there will be some leveling that needs to happen to put the pavilion where it's going to be. It's a 30 by 50 pavilion. I think I had said in the application that we're shooting for a fall construction, but that's been pushed back to spring.
Okay. Can you describe some of the invasives that are present?
Yeah, primarily bittersweet and buckthorn, and probably a couple inch diameter buckthorn is the biggest stuff. Most shrubby buckthorn through there. Some bittersweet growing up.
And how far is the pavilion from your existing buildings?
It is, what is it?
Ish.
A couple 100 feet from the schoolhouse building.
So is any of the vegetation clearing you're doing, is any of that mature trees, or is it all that kind of successional invasive stuff?
Right, yeah, so if you're looking at it from the parking lot at the site, the slope goes down, there's mature trees that are on the
Down.
lower level.
Okay.
Yeah, but the slope is just shrubby, nothing
Mhm.
significant there.
And what is the, is this going to be a slab, or is it just grass underneath?
At the moment, it's gonna be, what's it called?
Crushed
Crushed
stone?
stone, yeah. So there's just, the concrete is just for the
Piers?
The piers there, the
Mhm.
footing, yeah.
So there's sonotubes, concrete piers, so will there be a concrete truck brought in because you have several going down 6 feet?
Right, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you know how they're gonna, are they gonna auger, or how are they gonna get down 6 feet? Do you know?
Questions beyond my.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that either. Yeah.
Okay. So, I guess can we take a step back? Can you talk about a little bit more of the, so you talk about slope restoration, mechanical and chemical treatments, cut stem, but are you gonna, within the footprint shown here, to build the pavilion, you're gonna have to make sure the roots are all out, right? Under the
We'll have
pavilion, so you'll
to-
have to excavate down a bit.
Yeah, there's probably, in the space that we're looking at, there's probably a handful of trunk and root masses that will have to come out, yep.
Mhm. Okay. So, I'm gonna back up a step again here, sorry. Description. Silt fence. Trenching for a conduit. questions while Julie and I play catch up?
Was the wetland line actually delineated? It's not clear if it was, how that was decided.
It has not been a formal delineation, yeah. So Tom Lotzenheiser, who's our regional scientist, is based there, and he is a pro. So he went out and checked it out, but we didn't do official delineation.
Okay.
Which is why it's labeled as approximate. Okay,
Yep.
got it.
And this area is outside of floodplain?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
That would be a different conversation. All right.
Unlike much of Arcadia, it is outside.
Right. Makes it interesting. So the tree line's coming back here as well. Is that, so, sorry. So it looks like the proposed tree line's coming back here as well. So this is the area of treatment,
Yes.
but the tree line's getting cleared back
No,
here.
it's not being
No, it's
cleared.
not.
That's just where it is. That's just where
Oh,
he's just.
trees versus shrubs?
Yeah, this is
Okay.
the shrubby sumac.
Okay, and
all
that's
here,
gonna
but
stay?
That's all staying. So it's
Okay.
just this area here that's going to
Okay.
be restored.
All right.
That's where the invasives are.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you for not referring to sumac as an invasive. Do you have any, has anyone done a site visit? Does anyone feel the need to?
I guess I don't know the area well enough, but
Okay. Well, our next meeting's only a week away,
I can
so we can,
do it on my own.
yeah, we can do it.
If we don't wanna try to schedule something as a group.
I think between now and then I have very limited ability to schedule something for, I have limited flexibility.
You could ask Sean to attend if you want those answers. Sean from Beyond Green,
Okay.
who's doing it, to answer some of the questions you have
Okay.
about the construction, if that would be helpful.
For for next Monday?
Yeah.
That would be very helpful.
Yeah.
If you wanna prep him, it's the kind of the means and methods of construction of the footings,
Yep.
and the grading, just so we understand the land disturbance and potential other, the concern with concrete on site is that it gets away.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay. So individuals will conduct site visits at will.
Sure.
And we'll
Ready for the next.
discuss this further at our meeting a week from tonight, fortunately.
Sounds good.
All right. Is there a motion to continue
Motion to continue to July 22nd at 6 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay.
Is there any marking of the location out there so that when
There
we
is
visit,
not.
Would it be
I
possible to
can
do something so
put
we
something.
can tell where it is?
Yep.
Corners or
Great.
something?
Yep. Put some flags out. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you
Yep.
for coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See that?
My bad.
Oh my gosh, you still came. Just want to make sure we get that back to Ken. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Need another one. Cautious.
Really?
Highly unexpected.
I know, I was expecting peanut.
I do have a plan set for the board for this next one.
Those are
Dense.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Okay.
Notes.
What's that?
It really helped take notes.
The plan set?
Oh.
What's going on?
Bump.
Yeah, that is like, you could take a nap. You know.
Neek.
All over the place.
Good evening, are you ready?
Yeah. no, we're
Okay,
definitely
I
ready.
just wanted to let you get set up in peace while we
No
settled
problem.
ourselves too. All right, we will now open a public hearing for a notice of intent filed by the Easthampton School Committee, Mass DEP file number 151305, for property located at 200 Park Street, map 157, lot 83. The applicant is seeking an order of conditions for construction of a new school building with associated parking, driveway, utilities, stormwater system, track and field facilities, site amenities, and landscaping within riverfront area. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Yes, good evening. My name is Carlos Nieto. I'm a landscape architect with the Berkshire Design Group. I'm working with the lead architect, which is Kilo Minek, and niche engineers. I'm going to start by doing a quick rundown on the existing conditions on the site and resource areas and kind of jurisdictional areas that are on the site existing, and then I'll run you through again, a quick description of what the proposed site looks like, and then go over the riverfront area areas that we talked about in our NOI. So first of all, the site consists of approximately 47 acres. It's the existing White Brook Elementary School. I think everybody, to a certain degree, are kind of familiar with the project. But I'm showing here what is the existing school. There is a current boulevard, 2-lane boulevard that leads to the entrance of the school, around 9,000 linear feet of boulevard. And the site is pretty much has wetlands on 3 sides. On the east side, there are wetlands and an associated 100-foot buffer. We're showing wetlands in green and the associated buffer in orange. To the north, there are also associated wetlands and then the associated 100-foot line. Existing conditions right now, there's a track right now that's part of that, within that buffer zone. There's a existing ball field that has some of the outfields also in that buffer zone. And as we look to the west, which is where there is the White Brook, which is a perennial stream, and that has associated riparian zone 100 and 200, which is what you're looking at in pink right now, and then the actual river or stream is on blue, this area, and then some associated wetlands that overlap, and then the buffer zones extends all the way to the existing boulevard, and the buffer, some of the riparian zone also is within the existing boulevard, and also in some of the existing parking lot and entrance to the school. As part of the proposed project, what we're looking at is, as the description that we submitted, demoing the school, and then replacing driveways, parking areas, and athletic fields in several different ways. So for the most part, we're kind of starting cleaning most of the things that are there right now existing, and then starting and redoing the school, which is what you're seeing right now on this side. As I mentioned, so the new school building is to the northeast, parking areas associated with the school, a new track and fields. And then there's going to be we're going to be redoing the entrance driveway as it comes into the school. In the description of the project, majority of the project happens outside of buffer zones. There are some areas of development that are going to happen within buffer zones of wetland areas that already had also some type of development before. So as you can see, part of the northern part of the school and the access drive to the kitchens and whatnot are within some buffer areas, but no work is being proposed in any of these wetlands. Same on the back, there are some playgrounds in some of the areas of buffer, and part of the track would be also in some buffer area and maintenance building. But I think the majority of the work that we are concerned about is the work that's happening on the riparian zone. There are, and just to give you some more detail, the way that we've designed the new drive has reduced the amount of pavement. Originally was a 2-lane boulevard. What we're proposing right now is just a single lane or a single paved area with 2 lanes in and out. And as we stated on our narrative, there is a decrease on total pavement on that area. In addition to that, some of the areas that are, and we are proposing, this is a redevelopment project within the riparian zone. So we've calculated those areas, and also we are proposing in the areas where the existing, you can barely see it, but one of the lanes that we're removing, we're gonna be proposing native plantings and restoration plantings happening on that, on the area where that area of pavement exists today. I don't know if you want me to go through each one of how we are meeting our redevelopment. I can go through them. They're talked about in the description. Would you like me to go?
Which, you mean 1058.5 or the stormwater standards?
5 and how
Okay.
we're
Where is that point by point in the?
in the description. Yes,
Okay.
it's point by point in the. You should have it on the, I believe, the third page.
Okay.
Actually, now that I look at this, I'm sorry, that was one of the questions, actually, one of the comments that the DEP had, that they wanted us to go through each one of these. We have a revised description
okay.
that includes all that. We have not submitted
Oh,
that
okay.
revised
So
description.
that is pending?
Yes.
Okay. That would be helpful.
Yes.
To provide.
for sure. And again, I don't know if you want me to go over this now. Yes. At a minimum, the proposed work shall result in improvement. That's CMR 1058.5A. At a minimum, the proposed work shall result in improvement over existing conditions of the capacity of the riverfront area to protect their interests identified by MGL 131, page 40. Our answer to that is existing paved degraded areas will be significantly reduced, and native plant species will be planted in the former driveway area to be removed. This will result in reduced runoff and improvability of the riverfront area to improve wildlife passage, foraging and nesting. What we've included a table, and also on our revised, there was a question on the comments from DEP on how much area where we were removing of pavement. We revised that number. The original number included also the green space between the 2 roads. So we made sure that we eliminated that. Doing that calculation again, we have a total paved degraded area within the riverfront as existing conditions on 37,500 square feet. And we are proposing total paved, we are gonna end up with a total paved area of 19,664 square feet, for a difference of 13,452 between the two.
What was
So
the
we are
second number?
reducing by 13,452 the paved areas. We've also broken it down within the inner riparian and outer riparian zone.
Okay.
In the narrative, I think once you get this, you'll look at this. But for the most part, within the inner riparian, we're reducing it by around 48%, and in the outer riparian, we're reducing about around 40%.
Okay.
And that's with the new numbers.
Okay.
So as B, stormwater management is provided according to standards established by the department. The engineer is gonna talk a little bit further on the drainage system, but this project proposes an extensive stormwater management system with treatment of runoff, attenuation of peak flows, and infiltration to the maximum practicable extent. So that's our meeting B of 1058.5. C, within the 200-foot riverfront area, proposed work shall not be located closer to the river than existing conditions or 100 feet, whichever is less, or no closer than existing conditions within 25-foot riverfront areas. While proposed work must be done to maintain access to the site, the net result will be a reduction in impervious roadway area. Therefore, the proposed impervious roadway area will be set back further from the mean annual high water line than its existing conditions. We basically tried to keep it away as much as possible within the riparian zone. The D of the 1058-5, proposed work including expansion of existing structure shall be located outside of the riverfront area or toward the riverfront area boundary and away from the river. Our answer is the primary proposed work includes a new school building and site work outside of 200 riverfront area. So the majority of the work is going to be outside of the 200 riverfront area. Work associated with a new roadway will occur in the riverfront as summarized above, as we talked about before. Within the riverfront area, existing parking lots and portions of driveways, impervious areas on the east side of, which is this area. Within the riverfront, existing parking lots and portions of driveways on the east side of White Brook will be removed and replaced with vegetation cover and or stormwater basins. New parking lot are located entirely outside of the riverfront, thus reducing the amount of impervious area within the 200 riverfront area. What is described here is that this is the whole lane that will be paving that's going to be eliminated, and it's going to be revegetated, and also there's a part of the parking lot area right in here, and there's also part of the original loop, kind of circle loop, that's going to also be revegetated, and the areas within the riparian zone. The area of proposed work shall not exceed the amount of degraded area, provided that the proposed work may alter up to 10% of the degraded area is if the degraded area is less than 10% of the riverfront area, except according to 310 CMR 1058 5F or G. I guess the amount of proposed work consisting of impervious degraded area, 19,664 square feet, does not exceed the amount of existing degraded area, which is 37,567 square feet. Proposed native plantings in accordance with restoration criteria of 310 CMR 1058, consisting of roughly 9,000 square feet in area, is not included in this figure. So what we're saying is that we are reducing the amount of impervious surface within that riverfront area. And then this is a long one. When our applicant proposes restoration,
You don't have to read the whole thing if you don't
on
want
site,
to.
yeah. Basically, we will be managing those areas. The project proposes on-site restoration of degraded areas at a 1-to-1 ratio, totaling approximately 9,000 square feet. This consists of seeding and planting of native species in the former driveway area that is to be removed. No mature trees or vegetation exist in the former roadway area. The grading in the restoration area includes creation of a swale to treat and infiltrate runoff from the newly constructed driveway. The grading can be seen on the civil engineering drawings, which we'll be showing afterwards, and includes small overflow basins to slow runoff velocity and encourage infiltration. Topsoil will be installed at the surface within the restoration area, consistent with the conditions found on site, a minimum of 6-inch depth. Finally, seeding with an erosion control and conservation mix will be done, followed by plantings of native trees and shrubs species. The proposed species can be seen on the landscape planting drawings, which were submitted with the application. So that's a long and boring description of 1055-5 and how we are meeting every one of those requirements.
Okay, so can you talk about, aside from the access road and the improvements in the net reduction in impervious area there, which is obviously significant, can you talk about the work that is occurring in riverfront area relative to the design you're showing there? So is there any change in tree line?
No, there isn't.
Okay, so then what are you showing in up in that general area or near there?
We're keeping the same tree line that we had, as you can see.
Yep.
From what we have here. And that's outside of, I mean, the only area of this area really inside riparian zone. This is the 200-foot outer riparian. So this area already is a playing field, so it's staying as a playing field.
Okay.
No other work is being proposed right now in that between the 200 and 100. As we come to this area right here, this is where the majority of that work will happen, which is the demolition and removal of the old driveway. And I don't know if you can see it here, but there was a boulevard, so this one lane and the other lane is basically where we have the proposed drive lane. And then there was an area of parking lot, small area of parking lot right in here that also is gonna be removed and revegetated. The only new work that's gonna happen in this area, in addition to the driveway, is a offshoot drive that actually still exists right now, which connects to the
Treehouse.
neighborhood to the south. So for the most part, yeah, we're not removing, we're not proposing removing any trees, and the work is gonna consist 99% of replacing the driveway to come into the site. And then and some stormwater that's gonna happen basically in this area right here.
Okay. And then, oh, go ahead.
And we will go.
I can go over that.
Yeah,
Okay.
he will go over all the stormwater.
And it looks like south of that playing field, to the northwest of the proposed parking lot. I'm on the north side of the access road.
Okay, yeah.
So just above your pen, what are those? They're just right up to the riverfront area. What is that?
There are 2 basketball
Okay.
courts and some playground, like exercise equipment.
Okay.
But just stopping right in front of the 200-foot.
Okay. And then shifting to buffer zone. So, how much work is proposed in buffer zone? I'm sorry if that number came out.
I will definitely come up. I don't have the
Okay.
number right now.
There were a lot of numbers. So.
And we will definitely provide that number for you.
Thank you. So it looks like, yeah, if you can talk about proposed, and then obviously at some point there's going to be some demolition as well as construction. So can you kind of talk about the sequencing of this project so that we have an idea of how it will progress relative to buffer zones?
I will go very in very general terms of the sequencing. I think I will.
That's fine.
Or can the head architect will help me a little bit better on this. But my understanding is that the existing building is going to stay during construction of the new building. That's why we have it kind of offset. So there will start with preparation of the site for this area. There's an area where the existing track is right now, that there will be a certain amount of fill that has to be brought in to that area. That area drops significantly from the top area. So I believe that's going to be the start of, a big start of the work is going to be happening there. As this building gets finished, then the demolition of the existing building will start happening. And I believe last but not least is going to be the parking areas that are going to be developed.
Okay.
Bert Gardner, K-Long, do you need dates for any of this?
I'm sorry?
Do you need dates for the timeline
No.
on that, or okay?
No. I'd be impressed if any could be thrown out right now.
Yeah.
One holds you to it. Okay. So talking about fill coming in and significant amount of material, I'm sure, because that's a large footprint. I guess what are the plans to protect the resource areas and stabilize? There's going to have to be some side slopes. So how
Want me to chime in on that?
do we have some
that would be great,
grading,
sure.
conceptual grading for what you're doing up there?
So, you mean in terms of like an interim grading plan during construction?
Any and all.
Okay, I'm Matt Brisser from Midge Engineering, so it's
Thank you.
site civil engineers for the project. So basically, as Carlos was just saying, there are 2 main overall construction phases that are happening. So there's the construction of the new school, maintaining the existing school, 2 phases, and the idea for access is that during that period, both lanes of the boulevard will be maintained. The northern, actually the new drive actually is pretty coincident with the northern existing access. So that's probably going to get constructed first and used for construction access to the rear portion of the site. With the temporary connection here, and when moves into the second phase, when this lot's constructed and the school gets demolished, that'll eventually be removed. But during the construction period, the site, as I'm sure you know, is subject to NIPD stormwater permitting for construction activities. And a draft stormwater pollution prevention plan has been submitted with the application. Because of the way this contract's going to run, that draft plan will be adopted by the site contractor as part of their contract. They'll finalize that plan, and as part of that, construction specifications for the project require them to produce an actual site management plan for the project as part of that permit with EPA. So I guess the short answer is at this time, there is no interim site construction management plan specifically related to phasing. Primarily because, you know, sometimes we'll do those on some projects, but on a project of this complexity, usually we rely on the contractor to produce that. We'll review it and, you know, for consistency with the SWIP documentation and standard practice and everything else, but that's gonna come as part of the construction project contract. Does that answer your question? Is that
I guess it was more from a site civil design perspective. How is proposed grade going to transition to existing grade at the limit of work?
At the actual limit of work back in here, there's not a huge change in grade. There's going to be fill brought in primarily to provide adequate base material for the new building foundation. I mean, there will be a slope off the back, but at the limit of work in the back, and I think putting a grading plan up here probably wouldn't be very helpful because you wouldn't really be able to see it. We're pretty much meeting existing grade just kind of off the end of the back of this drive here. There's actually an existing pretty significant drop off up in this corner right up here now, and we're kind of meeting the upper part of that. I don't know if that answers your question at all. But
It does.
We're really not. There's not going to be like a big embankment in the back of the project site. Basically, if that's what you're asking.
That is. That's helpul.
And the new school is actually, the finished floor is, I forget how many feet lower than the existing school.
But it drops down there.
It drops down.
It's right in the middle, so about 5 feet above the existing field, about 4.5 feet lower than what White Brook's current finished floor elevation is, somewhere around there.
So the school has done, or the football boosters, I'm not sure what they're called, has done extensive drainage work in that athletic field area, the track and football field area. Is all of that getting removed as part of this? So that will be removed and properly disposed off-site? It won't be left in place?
No. Okay. No. Everything in this whole area will be removed in terms of where the building footprint is.
Is that true of all the drainage infrastructure?
By the time this project is done, there's a substantial enough amount of construction activity that's going to happen here and regrading of this site that I seriously doubt any of the existing infrastructure is going to remain. And there are site demolition specifications included with the project that prescribe to the contractor, you know, what elements can remain under what circumstances, but, you know, and we haven't done a full site utility demo for this yet because that's also going to be part of the phasing documentation that we review. But I would venture to say that there's not going to be a lot of infrastructure left. But
no, I think that the only thing that I've even heard grumblings about is the water department would like to take the opportunity to replace the feed coming into the school from Park Street, and that's all asbestos pipe. So if we can abandon that in place, following procedures, we would do that rather than pay to have that taken away.
Do you know the alignment of the existing water main?
In general terms, yeah, it runs.
Is it in the pavement or in the grassed area in between, or either side?
I have to take a look at the utility plan. I can't remember, to be honest. I believe when we looked at it, I think it's fairly close to where the edge of this new road is, but I'd have to go back and look at the existing conditions drawings to be sure of that.
So if you could, when you look into that, if you could figure out if you think it qualifies as an exempt replacement, you know, maintain, repair, replace, but not substantially change or enlarge. So if they're going from an 8 to a 10, or you know, if it's a 4 and they're going to a 24, then that's
no. At this time, we're anticipating it's going to be replacing kind in terms of diameter.
And roughly in its current alignment, obviously, but not the exact one if they're abandoning an asbestos pipe in place.
The proposed water line is shifted over a little bit. I think that for the most part,
but roughly within the same.
It's like in terms of the roadway center line, it's relatively close to existing grade along the entire alignment. So we're assuming, you know, where that water is, there'll be some regrading done, as I'll talk about in a minute, in terms of some of the stormwater improvements here. But everything should be above grade. There's not going to be any real excavation along that. Where the water line is, if it's 5 feet below grade.
Okay. I was going to say it should be like 5 feet below grade, right?
Yeah, I'm saying there won't be any excavation in that area that we would anticipate impacting that existing pipe.
I see.
that's what I was getting at.
And you may not have the answer to this now, but perhaps you do. But, when they get to the crossing of White Brook,
Mhm.
is it going above the existing culverts? So I don't think you're touching those culverts, is that correct?
Correct. We are assuming that the water pipe goes above culverts. We don't know that for a fact. The existing sewer main that we're connecting into goes below them, and that's not being replaced.
Okay.
We're connecting to the existing up on this side of the culvert.
Okay.
So that there's definitely we're not anticipating touching those culverts whatsoever.
Okay.
So unless we encounter some situation that isn't reflected on any of the existing documentation, we don't think we need to.
Okay. Can you talk about more of the work that's occurring in buffer zone? Like what, the actual,
Through here, or in terms
more
of
the back side, the east side of the work?
Well, would it be helpful if I ran through some of the stormwater
Sure.
stuff? Because that's mostly what's happening back there.
Okay.
And in the riverfront area here.
Okay.
And I thought we were meeting downstairs, so I apologize for not having a bigger graphic. A little bit smaller scale, but I think I can point out some of the highlights. This is the existing, the proposed site, obviously. And stormwater management for this project is, for a number of reasons, it's fairly challenging, not the least of which is the fact that we have really poorly drained soils across the entire project site, which is taking infiltration out of the toolbox specifically for water quality management on this. So what we're doing is kind of employing a number of different strategies in different parts of the site that are intended to meet the stormwater standards. So I guess I'll just go from west to east as we come into the site. This is the proposed access drive, and again, it sort of runs along the same alignment as the northerly existing side of the boulevard. And this was a little bit of a late change to the design approach here. We had previously had a little bit more of a conventional stormwater system intended for the drive. What we ended up deciding to go with was a little bit more of a green infrastructure oriented approach, which takes the drainage that sheet flows across the entire road, so that side of the road is not crowned. Sheet flows across to the side to a crushed stone shoulder for pretreatment, and then into a shallow grass swale that's interrupted by several small bioretention cells, each of which sized for the water quality volume discharges sheet flows off to the side at discrete points, kind of providing stormwater flow to these wetland areas here, and avoids concentration of flows in that area. So we're basically eliminating all the pipe drainage infrastructure in the existing access drive, which now is limited to a central swale that basically drains directly to this culvert with no treatment. So that's the west side. As soon as you get across the culvert on this side, runoff from some of the paved areas of the site are directed to a series of gravel wetlands. And if the tuition's unfamiliar with those, I can talk about those a little bit, but they provide water quality treatment as well as some degree of peak flow control. The building includes a series of rain gardens, which are effectively pretty much the same as a bioretention area, but they're not intended to really provide water quality treatment from pavement per se as a primary treatment device. They're a bit smaller. And they're mostly just picking up water between the building and the paved areas to provide a little more. We're not really going to get much infiltration on this site in general, and we can't take credit for any of it. Any of these volumes, because of the low permeability soils. However, we still wanted to provide some ponding area for vegetative growth. So that's what those are in the front. This one on the side actually does accept runoff from this parking lot, and this particular rain garden functions as a pre-treatment structure for a larger bioretention area in the back of the site. So this is actually just outside the buffer zone on the east side of the site. What's also tributary to this bioretention area is the emergency access drive that rings the back of the building. Water will sheet flow off of that into a shallow vegetated swale, relatively flat, to around 1% slope, so we might get some infiltration through that in the upper soil strata as well, but that's all tributary to this bioretention area, which discharges to a level spreader here. There's some additional drainage that comes from the building roof in these interior courtyard areas, which discharge to, there's an existing drainage outfall right here. There's an 18-inch pipe that discharges in that direction. And that's, again, these having multiple discharge points across the site, you know, we're trying to maintain existing flow patterns and maintain flow to the surrounding wetlands. So we're trying to spread things out as much as we can. Last feature here is really a subsurface detention system that's providing peak flow control toward the west side of White Brook. Peak flow for the rear of the site, we tried to manage by just managing the area that was tributary to that portion. There's a peak flow reduction, obviously, on the front because of the reduction in the impervious cover. So we're trying to limit how many of these systems were needed to provide peak flow management. So this accepts flow from the central parking lot as well as parts of the east side of the roof. So that's an overview. I can get into as much detail about any of these systems as you want. I'm not getting too boring about it. But in terms of buffer zone activity, you know, it's really, there's no real expansion into that zone relative to the development that's there currently. There's, you know, roadway construction that's happening back there, but it's all treated and subject to, you know, stormwater management features on the site. There's some under-drain systems here associated with the football field and track that we can talk about, as well as some area drains. But these are kind of focusing on the areas of the site that require treatment prior to discharge.
I wanted to point out that some of the areas that are for the track and the fields were parts of where the existing building footprint used to be.
Correct.
Within the buffer zone that's existing conditions. So
yeah, you can't really see it on here too well, but the existing buildings are right here.
Where does the rest of the roof runoff go?
These three fingers in the back are draining toward these courtyard areas and to this pipe system in the back, discharge up to this corner. The front section here is actually routed through the drainage piping system that connects all these rain gardens in the front. It and then connects directly into the subsurface detention system for peak flow control.
And the bioretention cells along the roadway at high velocity, does that function as a swale where everything keeps going down to the outlet point, or at high velocity does it come out all of those 1, 2, 3, 4,
well,
5?
These are really being designed specifically as flow breaks and collection sumps, basically. So the crushed stone shoulder provides some pre-treatment. The grass vegetated portion of the swale provides a little bit more pre-treatment, and then those basins are designed to prevent a high accumulation of flow along the entire run of the swale, so you don't wind up with a big accumulation of flow, even in a high intensity storm event. At the very bottom, there is a little bit of a larger bioretention cell here that takes whatever overflow happens through here and some of the rest of the road runoff that sheets into it with the discharge here.
But the idea is that it's discharging at all of those points along the way?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So long-term, I understand the city is the owner, but who's actually who within the city is responsible for long-term O&M of a pretty complicated stormwater system, including bioretention?
Yeah, it'd be the school districts. I'm assuming it's the public works.
Can you
department in town
maybe
that-
verify
Yeah.
who
I think
within?
it would be in the O&M that we provided. It's an identified.
Is the owner listed?
Schools
I thought
division,
so.
not DPW.
Right. Responsible party, City of Easthampton. I'm just wondering because in terms of,
So that was a question that we, when we do these projects, we, not just school projects, but any project we do, it's kind of our first stab at stormwater management approach is to see if the parties that we're dealing with are interested and willing to look at green infrastructure oriented elements. And a lot of the time when we're specifically doing schools or other municipal projects, we get a lot of pushback from public works departments because they don't want to manage those. So that question has been asked of the project team, and and I think the high school had LED elements too.
Seems like it does.
Yeah. So I mean, the other thing about these systems that are here, if they're maintained properly for the first several years, they tend to become relatively low maintenance BMPs. It's the first several years of establishment of the plant communities in those areas that are pretty critical, and they can, and I've seen them, they can go wildly out of control if they're not taken care of at first. But long term, once you get healthy establishment of solid vegetation, they really don't require any more maintenance than if the school is going to maintain all the piped infrastructure on their site, it shouldn't be that much more a stretch to manage those, but it will be something that will be necessary long term for them to function properly.
Exactly. So I guess if there's any clarification you can provide, within, I understand it's the city, the school department. The school committee's not going to be, I know they signed the application, but they're not going to be involved in long-term O&M. So I guess in the spirit of implementing a long-term plan that's been laid out carefully, understanding where that responsibility lies would be helpful from my perspective. Can you also identify where snow disposal may occur on site? Is that snow stockpiling and disposal is
I don't know
part
if
of
we
it?
actually laid that out specifically, but there are a number of open spaces within the
Outside of riparian zone, or
Yeah,
outside
yeah.
of buffer zone where we could store.
Yeah, all these kind of shaded white areas that are not colored green are not stormwater management areas. They're landscaped areas, which would be available for ordinary snow storage.
And
maybe we can
let me see if we can
get back on that. I don't think we specifically identified those.
There's still some major areas right next to the parking lot and also in some of the islands that are here that some of that snow could definitely go, especially like here, there's total green space in here with the still outside of the riparian zone, outside of any buffer zone. Again, as a general statement, I think there is space for snow storage around the parking lots and existing green areas. But
I think we can more specifically
put together a management plan. Yeah.
Okay.
Are those, the islands, are those just going to be grass? Are they planted with trees? I mean, how available are they really for storage and plowing?
They wouldn't be plowing towards the green areas. There will be tree plantings along some of these islands, yes. But like any other parking area, or even if you have planting areas with trees, there would be areas then to put the snow away. And it's if you want to, I think there's a detail, I'm pretty sure there's a detailed planting plan, so you can see what the planting plan actually looks like.
Do you know what sheet that is?
It's
giant set. Yep. Pop quiz.
You're gonna go for it.
Yeah. So those would
Be safe,
be,
Candy.
planting plans would be sheets 501 and 502.
L landscaping.
501 and
Got
L
it.
502.
Okay.
And it's because the site is so
I don't know,
big
under?
that it's split into two.
Okay. Trees.
Yeah, and
So,
Are all of these things really proposed to go in the rain gardens? That's a tremendous number of.
that's it. Well, part of it's seed mix.
yeah,
It's a seed mix.
the seed mix
so,
is
Okay.
and then in total there's a pretty heavily planted site, and the size of it is so that's why you end up with so many trees.
So UAP. So within areas subject to jurisdiction, and without going through all of these, trees and shrubs proposed, are they native?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking quickly and I'm seeing some.
For sure. I don't know about are the arborvitaes? I don't know.
I mean, they're maybe horticultural variants of.
Yeah, there will be cultivars of plants.
Where are the tulip trees going?
Just out of curiosity.
I believe they're along. And just to be very
1,
clear
2,
too,
3.
Michael Liu is the landscape architect who worked on this. He's out this week. I'm familiar with the project, so I came here and so if there's any very detailed questions, I definitely will defer to him to answer. But
Oh, no. Okay. Yeah, why only 3? Oh, sorry. So, I guess. So the plan is to install natives.
They're all over the place.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, then that's not.
There's supposed to be 11.
Oh, thank you. I was looking at the wrong.
and then
order.
and you'll see some also repeated in enough.
Okay. Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So.
It's very intensely planted, and some of the rain gardens also were meant also as educational tools. So there's a lot of. That's why you saw those massive seat.
Particularly the ones along the front, the inner portions of the building is actually building entrances that bridge across the rain gardens, the walkway. So
They
actually,
did.
going in and out of the building, they're right there.
Yeah.
Cool.
And in storm events, their children
Flowing
can actually
water.
see how the water actually works.
What are those walkway surfaces going to be?
It's all concrete surfaces, if I'm not mistaken. Yep.
Yeah, there's a couple.
And
there's a
there's a
couple of
bridge.
bridges coming out of like the egress stairs. This is access to the fire water service. That's an egress stair there. So those are
They're going to be grates, no?
I don't think they're grates. They're originally as like metal plate.
Metal plate.
Yeah, but
there will be basically bridges that you'll go over.
But the primary entrances are concrete plazas.
Yep.
So since we have a very detailed plan open, again, we got buffer zone here. So this is basketball. Is this playground area on the back side?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And those are as I was mentioning, this one.
And are these existing? I'm guessing since those are large DDH. Okay.
Playground surfaces are, do we know?
They're going to be, I mean, as far as my understanding is going to be either a rubber surface or is going to be a loose material like what we
Something
call
that could migrate.
mulch. Well, the rubber surfaces would be poured in place rubber surface, so it's integral, so it doesn't move. It doesn't. It's not a.
So that would be like the early ed, the preschool playground would have that surface. Most surfaces are
going to be wood
sand,
chip.
mulch, or just natural like grass surfaces. This is the basketball court kind of overlaps our fire lane, so that
basically
taking advantage of the paving. That we
might
need
as
for
well
that
we have
anyways,
paving in
right?
there. Exactly.
And what about the track surface?
Track surface, again, it's again a rubber type of surface. That's what's being proposed at this point, and it's again an integral system. For sure, for the playgrounds, that's all pervious. Even the rubber surface is actually pervious. It just lets all the water go through. I believe the track surface is the same, and then there is a underground drainage system within the actual field to drain those fields.
I've seen issues with rubber surfaces where the little bits wind up migrating into nearby wetlands and outfalls.
So I've never had that issue, but I can see how it depends on if it's there are very different again use of rubber. When you're looking at poured in place rubber surfaces, I've never seen migration of material. I can see how that could happen in sports field, meaning on a synthetic turf where you have loose infill in there. I don't know exactly where they're moving towards, where these fields are going to be. They're going to be natural. Yeah. So I can see how there could be definitely problems with that type of material, but in this case we're not using.
I was at a playground this weekend, and if you sat on the rubber surface, you stood up and tiny little balls of rubber would stick to
Really?
your very warm skin.
Where, I'm just curious.
Belchertown.
Okay.
At the, is it Jessica's playground?
Mhm.
It's,
I know which one.
you know which one.
Yep. Not ours. But I've seen it.
But whatever that surface was,
Had some.
had some
that
material
would come
coming up
Okay.
consistently.
Again, in my experience with the ones that we've used, we haven't, but I can definitely understand how it could happen.
I missed this.
Is that playground?
That's all playgrounds, yeah.
Playground. Playground?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's really a lot of natural kind of playground features out there, you know, stepping stones, stumps, logs.
Some of the
But then we do
bunkers
have some pockets where we've got some more structured equipment here, the preschool area. These are actually at grade features, so it's an earth mount to get up to the top of a slide that's right at grade and go down.
So in those cases, we don't need the rubber surface on those.
So.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna ask about this. This is like a drainage right now, that's sort of a steep drop
Existing,
off.
yeah.
So what's the plan for safety with kids and erosion with that?
Are there
Well-
any
Looks like it's gonna
fences
be heavily
proposed, or?
planted,
At this point, there isn't a fence proposed on the back.
Okay.
What we're proposing for helping with the erosion issue here is doing some plantings in that area, which is what we're showing here at the top of it.
BAFL? I think there might be shrubs.
Yeah.
Or BA.
Oh, two different things, gotcha.
Yellow birch, F. Forsythia intermediate.
It's pretty safe.
The idea is to put those right before that
The break.
riprap that's going down, yeah. And then the trees right in the, basically to try to slow down some of the water.
Going back to winter maintenance questions, do we know, I don't know what they do now on the road going in, but I'm assuming that there's some consideration for the material, given that the stream is right there. And I'm wondering what that material is and how it's going to interact with your proposed
Talking
gravel
about
swale
de-icing
system.
What material, meaning what?
What de-icing they're using, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure what they're using right now. I don't know what.
Or what would be the correct thing to use, given the stream and the proposed stormwater controls?
There are definitely several alternative de-icing, I guess, techniques that you could use. The question is, I think we need to talk about it, because then we don't want to say something and then have DPW have to be,
Right.
Have to do that and change totally the way that they do it. So we have to look at that.
So in the spirit of moving forward, I think, so you said you have a written response to comment number 1 from DEP.
Yes.
Is there an invasive species management plan or component to any of this work?
There isn't right now, but there, if it so requires, we will have.
And then I wouldn't, is it anticipated that has it already been provided, and I apologize because I haven't looked at it, but, or for this detail, landscaping material disposal? Because if you go around the existing site now, you find piles where it can be conveniently placed out of sight, but many of those are at or near wetland boundaries.
Right.
And I see this as a great opportunity to not do that in the future.
So that, and there is actually a section in the operation and maintenance plan for ice and snow management as well.
Mhm.
I believe it's based on DEP guidance.
Right.
But there is also another section for maintenance of lawn, gardens, and other
What
landscape areas.
page?
On page 4. So again, that's sort of something that, what will the mechanism be to make sure that the city actually complies with that plan, which is attached, it'll be attached to the order of conditions for the project, you know, so.
I think we're looking for page 4 of the O&M plan.
Sorry. Long-term.
Oh, yes, that's on page 4 of the plan.
Which is, do you know where in the document?
Management.
Yep, there it is right there.
Pesticides first should not be used. Project site not stored. Dumping of lawn waste or debris is not permitted.
So, I
So I
mean, that's
guess
pretty
the-
standard language for these.
Yeah, no, I
plans.
understand. So I guess maybe, Ken, this is a question for the city. What can the city do to ensure proper education for compliance with the long-term O&M plan? Thank you. So again, so we've said you've got a written response to, is it to all the comments or just the 1058.5?
The 1058.5 and the revised project narrative as it was asked, so that the comment number 1, I think the other comments were related.
They're all related to stormwater.
Stormwater.
So can you provide a written response to those?
Definitely.
That would be helpful.
Well, there's one item actually which I would like to bring up.
Okay.
One of the comments that I'd like to get the commission's opinion on. It's related to the designation of the site discharged to a critical area. So when the feasibility study was done for this originally, the initial site assessment, when that was done, it was shown that the site itself was outside of the locally defined aquifer protection district.
Okay.
So I think the presumption was that because it was outside of that area, that it was also outside of zone 2.
But it,
So here apparently it's not.
90% of Easthampton is zone 2.
So we're in zone 2.
Yep.
Which does offer one complication to the approach that we're taking and some of the limitations of the site in terms of stormwater quality treatment. For a new project, discharged through a critical area, there are limitations on use of proprietary water quality structures for stormwater quality. They're limited to pretreatment only. So because of some of the elevation conditions, spatial constraints and topographic constraints in this area, we are relying on proprietary structures for treatment for a portion of the access road that's tributary to this subsurface detention system. The alternative to doing that would be a fairly significant expansion of stormwater BMPs in this area, which would be likely to push further into the riverfront area, which we're obviously trying to limit as well. The terrain, you can't see from here because there aren't any grades on here, but there's actually a real steep rise in terrain right there. So we need to push into this zone and expand the stormwater treatment capacity of those systems. So that said, if we had taken the approach that we were in, dealing with those limitations on this particular type of site, we probably would have proposed designating this as a mix of new and redevelopment. Because we do have a modest increase in impervious area. It doesn't technically meet the definition for a complete redevelopment project. But just the constraints that we're dealing with, coupled with what I think is a pretty substantial improvement to the stormwater quality conditions for the project in general, I think that's the approach we probably would have taken if we knew that we were in zone 2. So that's probably going to be some formatted response to that comment, and with some specifics about how much of the site is tributary to that system versus other green infrastructure BMPs.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we're going. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me to have additional intrusion into the riverfront area for those systems, even though they would be technically allowable.
If you could quantify the impacts, even ballpark, that would mean for riverfront area or elsewhere, please include that.
Yeah, we'll probably treat it sort of like, a limited alternatives analysis for that specific topic. In terms of what the program requirements are for the project and what we're limited by spatially. So aside from that, that was the only comment that came back that we're going to need to provide a significant response to.
So, thank you. So I have one more question, or I have a question. I probably have many more as this rolls around. But during construction, obviously, it's going to be challenging to manage the site during construction with an active school.
Definitely.
Yeah, so, I would request that you identify material, staging, stockpile, laydown areas, as well as, including but not limited to soil, stone, other things of that nature, and identify those potential locations on a site plan. So that, because otherwise I would encourage the commission to consider, dictating where they can't be. So I'd like you to, you have a better understanding of the mechanics of what they're gonna need to do and bring in and move around. So if you could identify general locations
So I
as
think
well as
we could-
potential BMPs to protect resource areas from that, I would appreciate it.
I think if, what we could do, because it's a little bit tricky for us because we can't actually dictate those specifics to the contractor. What we can do for the contract is we could provide a conceptual layout of where we think, the go and do not go areas are. And limitations that the contractor has to form their construction site management plan to comply with. But what I would suggest is if the commission would consider including the condition of approval that a final plan that's gonna be attached to the SWIP with the construction NIPD's permit be submitted to the commission as part of prior to construction, which is gonna be required under our specifications to the contractor anyway. And the reason I'm being a little hedgy about that is because, we know the generalities of how the project's gonna proceed, but the contractor, through their contract, will have the ability to make adjustments to that to suit their construction process, the specifics of it. So we usually try to avoid getting too specific at this stage for a project that's complex like this one is. But I totally understand what you're saying and what you're asking for. So I think why don't let's take a stab at it.
Okay, because my concern is if we allow a permit that authorizes up to X square feet of riverfront area, that excludes potential.
That we can do.
Okay.
Definitely.
Can be.
Now I understand what you're
It can
saying.
be a general
Yep.
location.
Yep, we can provide hard limits to areas that are available to them for
Right,
use.
like outside the first 100 feet or outside it to the extent practicable, but I understand it's a very constrained site with the obligations the city has to meet during construction.
Yeah, no, we can definitely do that.
Okay.
Sorry, I was being all.
No,
cheeky.
I understand.
Okay.
It's going to bid. Okay, so several of us did a site visit when the resource area boundaries were before us to be approved.
Can I make just a
Oh,
quick
yeah.
clarification on that? When the commission went out for the RDA, that was for it was on the back, basically this whole area.
Well, we did
Did you also do
we did not do the access road, but we did,
Where the track is.
we did where the track was, we did around the back of the building, and we did the bank, mean high water of White Brook.
Yeah, I believe it was something to this effect like that.
Yeah.
But as the project has moved along, and originally this area was not going to be redone, but now it is going to be redone. We went out, Alan Wise, our wetland scientist, went out and did do the flagging of these wetlands, but those have not been reviewed but still by the panel. So we were going to request during that site visit that we would have Alan Wise there for you to ask any questions on the flagging.
Sounds good. If he has any data forms or field notes that he can share, that would be helpful. Especially soils, since that's old field-ish. For the record, I'd like to note that there's not a single abutter present. Though we didn't ask, I know at least one person received an abutter notification. Do you have certificates of mail, certified mail receipts?
Yeah, that should be in.
Should have asked for those first, but now I am. And then do we want to talk about scheduling a site visit? Again, I have
No time.
poor availability between now and our next meeting. By poor, I mean, I don't think none.
How about
Be
after-
half a step
how
above
about
none.
after this meeting?
Is it still light out? Still light out.
And I have the abutters list too, I just grabbed it.
Yeah, the abutters list, if you want to just email that
Yes.
as a PDF, that would be fine. Okay. I don't like my schedule right now. So I wrote this up by hand. So,
And I believe that, I want to say that a copy of the abutters list should be with the submission package.
Yes, it's in the back of that
this?
Right at the.
thinner document.
Thank you.
I think right at the end, the last part of the submission package.
Yes.
The abutters list.
Okay, then you don't need to provide it.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. Okay, so, actually, I'll keep all this together for now. So do people want to start throwing options out there?
We're talking about before the 22nd.
Yeah.
I'm not around over the weekend.
Neither of us.
So,
Saturday, 7 a.m.
I could probably do that.
sounds horrible, but I could do it.
I'll be out of town.
Or not.
Unlikely story.
9 a.m.
I can't do 9, it's too late. I have commitments, I'm sorry. I could do 7, I could probably do 8 and be okay, but that's it.
8.
I actually prefer 7.
I'm sorry.
I'll just sleep in the car there.
There you go.
Why sleep? Sleep is unnecessary.
That's a lot.
I'm proving that today.
Sure.
8 a.m. on the 20th?
Okay. All right, so 8 a.m. on Saturday the 20th.
Yes.
Want to say rain or shine or no rain?
No rain, please.
Okay. Fair enough. I don't
Probably
think
won't
we'd
rain.
do too well.
No, it's gonna be nice this weekend.
It won't be too hot by then either.
Okay, so we're doing this only if it's not raining.
True.
Since when has that been? Oh, not raining.
Well, I've done site visits in the rain before, and they're not terribly productive.
There, you wanna see where the stormwater goes?
True story.
It's not gonna rain on Saturday, unless we get a hurricane. Just saying.
Okay, so with that,
Motion to continue to
Motion to
July
continue.
22nd?
Yep.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you very much. Excuse me while I save the candy. It's a really satisfying whack.
How many feet from the property is the abutter? 200 feet?
100.
100?
Anyone whose property line is within 100 feet of the parcel on which work is proposed.
Ken, do we have a plan?
Yes, we do.
They should be.
Yeah. It's a lot of plans to flip through.
All right,
On
so,
a little screen.
yeah, it is. Hold on. There's in Ken's summary email.
Yeah, there's a.
Okay, for the next item, requests for certificates of compliance, A, B, and C. Eversource, Master EP file number 15147, 151199, 151209, 19 Liberty Street. Deanna and I are out due to conflicts of interest.
Can you slow it down for 1 second? I just need to update the note.
Okay, I think I'm good.
Good? All right. And it's Kate?
Yes.
Yeah. Come on up.
And both these were Kate Wilkins, again, for Ty and Bond, here representing, or on behalf of Eversource Energy. These requests for certificate of compliance were submitted back in May. And I'm not sure who knows about them or what's been discussed, or Paul Bullier was the,
Yeah, we,
so I wasn't.
Julie, Michael and I met Paul at the site, and that's why we knew about the other one that was
Okay.
submitted in the removal of those tubes, because he explained that process to us while we were on the site visit.
When was the site visit?
I could find it for you, but I'm not gonna
That was
take it.
also, is that also the first?
I don't know.
No, that would have been.
I can find it, but, so we went out to the site, there were drawings of what was supposed to have been done, description of the process of the material being removed, maybe a list of plantings that were supposed to be put in place, that it's so overgrown and different, you know, it's not like it was,
Right.
this was 2 years ago.
Yeah, these were about 20 or so years ago.
Yeah, many years ago, so, I mean, the site looks stable, but if you have any comments on,
There's little way of knowing.
yeah, so it's,
Really?
you know,
Yeah, and we pulled together as much documentation as we could, since we
Mhm.
weren't the initial engineers that did this project. We kind of were just hired by Eversource to
try to
hopefully
clean these up.
administratively close out some
Yeah,
things.
right.
But
I mean, I don't have any problem closing them out and just letting those sites start fresh.
Sure.
I don't think we have any way of
Yes, I
judging
mean,
differently.
you know, no one's here that was here. We assume that all the things were removed that were supposed to be removed, because there's no way for us to tell. So, you wanna make a bunch of motions?
Sure. Hold on one
Okay,
second.
so I'll go slow.
So, if I may, before
Go for it.
the commission, you know, acts on these, I will have these completed for your signatures for the next meeting.
Oh, sure.
But, yeah, I mean, however you wish to act.
Okay.
So I'm going to motion to issue complete certificates for, can I go ahead and do these all at once?
Sure, I think.
For, Mass DEP file number 151147. Sampling at 19 Liberty Street, map 145, lots 22 and 23. At the same locations for file number 151-199 and 151-209.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved.
And perhaps you would be so kind as to suggest that your client close them out within a reasonable time next time?
yes,
Okay.
yep, that's,
All right, I think we're good then. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Katie,
I'll tell them all clear.
We should.
do you want me to send these to you?
Again.
I know.
Or do you?
Feel free to send
We're
them to,
bad.
But it's in a separate group.
Yeah.
Okay, so same with the,
Um,
the other one, the RDA?
actually, he's probably gonna want us to record them,
Okay,
so,
send it to your
yeah,
attention, okay.
that'd be great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ken, I still am not seeing anywhere that looks like it has enough sheets for the school project. They should all be uploaded in that folder?
Yeah, it shows up with a bunch of things in the folder. It might take a little bit to load.
Okay, yeah, maybe they're just not loading.
I'll take a look again before I leave today.
Okay.
And,
Oh, you don't
and
have to do
she'll-
it tonight.
Well, I have to make copies. I'm not gonna be here.
It's
tomorrow.
in an
Okay.
email that Ken sent out that had new items down here at Park, so is it, with like 10 other things.
Are we ready?
Planning board wouldn't have that, does it?
Well, I don't know.
How you doing, Deborah?
Oh, I'm good.
We're good.
Okay. All right. Next item, request for certificate of compliance, Autumn Properties LLC, DEP file number 151221, construction of storage facility 2 Industrial Parkway and O'Neill Street.
So, we received a request for, certificate of compliance, and the commission, I believe I provided these.
Yeah.
For a building that was already completed.
When was this order issued? Do you know?
The copy here,
151221.
says the order was issued in 2002.
So that predates every sitting member of this commission. For reference.
Oh, wait, yeah, 2002.
Those are even older.
I know.
October 28th, 2002.
Okay. So, could you paraphrase or look based on what was filed and what may be in the commission's files, although this is an A or a B, so our files may be lacking because unfortunately there was a culling incident without the commission's knowledge right before we got locking file cabinets. Yeah. So A's and B's are lean on the details, Autumn and Boyle. Unfortunately.
Seriously.
I think they just started at the beginning. I don't think it was any malicious intent, but it happened. So can you tell based on the order of conditions if there was one attached?
Yes. So there was, there was an attachment to the order of conditions.
Okay, so, but in the order of conditions, there should be what impacts were permitted? So were there any resource area alterations permitted, or was this buffer zone with stormwater? Yes. And it was policy back then, not standard, so who knows? Do you want me to look?
Yes, if you don't mind.
I don't mind. We're running long here. So, maybe able to get some information from Bill Cannon, since he filed. Two, 3, 4, 5. Why is this missing? I have the dump. I feel like the page numbering is wrong. I feel like they're missing the part where you actually check off what's allowed. But the page numbering works. Well, no, it wouldn't.
Maybe not for us.
Well, no, and I don't think it was on her. Did they provide an as-built?
Yes, I believe I gave that to you.
Yes, you did. Okay, that is what that is. So in perpetuity, no application of fertilizers, pesticides, no debris. Any instrument conveying this? Looks like we're in buffer zone only. These look like 2 copies of the same sheet. Yeah. And these look like full-size copies.
They're the same thing.
I believe so. Bruce Coombs stamped this, but there's no date on his stamp. plan is dated June 19th, 2019.
Would you like one since they seem to all be the same?
Yeah. So it looks like site grading and stormwater was in the buffer zone. So, we are supposed to do a site visit for any request for certificate of compliance. So do folks want to try to do this after White Brook?
Sure,
Do we want to say 9 o'clock
sure.
Saturday morning? Do we think an hour is sufficient for White Brook, or perhaps at that point, if not, we could divide and conquer?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I probably won't be able to stay, but that's fine.
So, we're gonna, can you notify the applicant? Bless me. Oh.
If the Eversource people want to step out of the room, I can get through this meeting pretty quick.
What? What are you talking about?
I could get through the rest of these line items pretty
more
fast.
efficient than you.
Go
Which is
for
a
it.
bold claim.
We'll just leave.
I
can go.
I also work for Eversource. 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's called paying your bill.
Yeah, right?
That's not a conflict of interest?
What are we calling this site visit? Sorry. O'Neill Street and
Properties.
Industrial Park. Yeah,
It's on O'Neill Street.
it's the one right at the end.
Connor.
But this is not aided. Oh, no, it is aided.
It's at 2 Industrial Park.
Are there more than one A to Z?
Yes,
Okay.
Oh, there's so many A to Zs.
Okay.
yes, there are multiples.
Multiple what?
Multiple A to Z storage
rentals.
properties.
Oh.
Okay. No, that didn't work out very well. Yeah, I do. It was PM, not AM. Nah.
That's how I
Okay.
originally wrote it in the notes.
Ready, steady, go?
Working orders.
That's for Ken. All right. Ken, any updates?
So I shared with the commission, this is in, I don't have anything for A, B, C, D, but E.
E.
I shared with the commission a response based on the last meeting. After I showed the commission, the plan, you had some further questions, and with those, the Mickey Marcus of SWCA did provide some responses
Okay.
to that. I don't know if you want to take a look, or do you want me to read them?
Can you do a dramatic reading?
It might get dramatic. Or speed reading. So, yeah, why don't you, can you
Well,
paraphrase?
Yeah, I will say too that if the commission wishes for them, if you're not ready to issue, or I guess lift the enforcement order.
They haven't complied
They
yet,
haven't.
so no.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not an advocate of that.
Then we'll invite them to the next meeting.
Okay.
But so one of the comments posed last week, the 300 square feet on the northwest side of the site that is
Yeah.
called out to be stabilized with stone, as the commission did not view this during the site visit, which suggests additional work under the enforcement area that is not subject to the enforcement order. Their response: the enforcement order issued by the commission included the entire cemetery and required St. Bridget's to evaluate all wetland impacts. In response to the order, SWCA and the cemetery staff reviewed the cemetery property, and erosion was noticed at the outfall of an existing stormwater pipe. There's no wetland alteration in this area, but we identified the erosion to be within the 100-foot buffer zone, and that left unprotected, the erosion would continue to expand. As part of the required O&M for the cemetery, we recommend the placement of stone at the outfall of the existing drain outfall pipe to stabilize and protect the slope. This area is the edge of the cemetery and no trees are within the outfall area.
But it drains into the pond, the runoff from the sewer. It's this dirt
the
drain
storm drain?
on that side, and it runs into like a paper pipe that's breaking down, and that just runs right into the pond, basically.
Did you see a paper pipe?
Yeah, it's an old, like one of those old tar pipes. You know.
I'm still not, so I guess my perspective on the enforcement action was that it had to do with
The debris dumping.
the actual dumping, not an existing outfall that's now resulting in erosion and sedimentation. I don't see that as a, I guess I don't see them as equal issues.
But if they are going to do work in this area, they should definitely get rid of the swallow wart, which is completely surrounding it. Because that's what all of that is.
Just hold the bank together.
It is definitely holding the bank together, yes. So that would be a large project if they wanted to take it on.
To manage for swallowwort?
Mm-hmm. That's what all of that is.
Story in my backyard.
I can help you get rid of it. Mm-hmm. I'm a pro.
So, this is the discharge that they show on their drawing?
This is on you're looking at the cemetery, it's on the left side of the corner.
I guess with the way it was shown on the slope, it looked like it was far down the slope, didn't it?
It's right at the top, but it continues further down.
Do you have
I mean,
their
it
site
makes a
plan
gully.
handy?
I thought I did. It's not in this. Somewhere.
Yeah, that's like left
Oh, thank you,
corner,
John.
right?
So this is the
Okay, I guess it's not down the slope.
it's right at the top of the slope,
Okay.
but it continues down.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to rip-wrap it down the slope further if you wanted to, keep it, 15 feet from where that pipe empties. You'd have to put riprap on it in there.
So you could modify the enforcement order to include invasive species management in these areas. It seems like a fair compromise.
We didn't have anything in there originally.
No.
Oh, no,
Just
this is
figuring out what was going on. Works for you? How do other people feel about that approach?
I'm okay with it.
So, do you want to make a motion to, or what are the other responses, actually?
So, comment 2 was the origins of the catch basin that is causing the erosion problem is not noted on the plan. The response was there are several existing catch basins within the cemetery roadway system. Comment 3, what is meant by reduce the piles to existing grade? The commission would like to clarify whether the intent is to remove the soil from the site or to spread the soils around. The plan includes use of New England wetland plants, seed mixes, and protection of trees 18 inches or greater DBH. Non-native materials and excess soil are to be removed off-site to restore the original pre-fill grades before reseeding the area. The response, the existing stockpiles of soil will be entirely removed from the cemetery property. Existing grade is the original land surface under the soil stockpiles. All disturbed ground will be seeded with the specified native seed mix. Following removal of the soil stockpiles, no trees are proposed to be cut. Larger trees are proposed to be protected during soil removal. Comment number 4, the enlarged view indicates that the temporary stockpile area will be within the buffer zone. A 2-foot earthen berm will be constructed at the top of the slope. Response, there is excess soil produced during grave excavation. The current management practice is to maintain stockpiles of the soil on site. The current proposal is to specify one location, currently a cleared lawn area, for the temporary stockpile of excess soil, which will then be removed from the cemetery property. We are proposing the construction of a permanent low earth berm as erosion control and limit of work barrier to ensure that there is no runoff from the soil stockpiles towards the wetlands. The maintenance shed, lawn, and existing soil stockpile areas are within the 100-foot buffer zone. And the final comment, clarification that any vegetation management within the buffer zone will require commission review. Their response, the enforcement order require the development of an operations and maintenance plan for the cemetery. These O&M tasks are included in the restoration plan. No additional tasks are proposed at this time. And the cemetery understands the new work within the 100-foot buffer zone will require review by the commission.
Okay. So, the commission like to make a motion that the 300 square foot area of erosion at the end of an existing discharge can be included in the restoration plan, provided there's a long-term, do we want to define a term, swallowwort management plan or invasive species management plan?
So motioned.
What do we want to say for long-term?
Ad infinitum.
And beyond.
Forever. And beyond.
In perpetuity?
5 years.
5 years?
I'm good with
Sure.
perpetuity.
Okay, well, that's your card.
Are you gonna enforce that?
You can follow up on that one then.
So Jay made the motion, I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So, I think, Ken, we need to draft a response to their response and include the summary from the minutes. Tia has
It's been
done.
a rough day. The minutes in this section are ridiculous. I just didn't get all of their responses.
No, that's fine. We have
I
it
did
in
get
writing.
the
We'll just
motion.
reference it
On
in writing.
video.
It's fine. That's fine.
Do you want, attendance at the next meeting?
Do we want their attendance at the next meeting, or do we just want to send them a response?
Just send them.
Let's just send
Are
it.
those
What's
yours
their
or
next
Ken's?
due date?
Never mind, you can add them to
Okay.
the file, yeah.
Thank you.
They're for the file.
We'll have 20 people here.
No, that's Jay's.
Oh, I thought it was-
I'll just hold on to it. We talked
What was their
about it.
next date? Didn't anyone
Next
answer?
week.
22nd.
Next week, Monday, a week from tonight.
That's their due date?
No, well,
Maybe we should just send him a letter then.
send them a letter and ask for them to come to the August 12th meeting if they want to show up.
Yeah.
Because a week is not much time.
Yeah, it
Maybe
says,
we can't
please let me
respond.
know if you would like our attendance at the next meeting, hearing, or if St. Bridget Cemetery may proceed with the submitted restoration plan.
So they can come, we'll send them the response, they can implement in accordance with the response, or they can come to our next meeting, or
Okay.
both.
But the meeting on the 12th.
On the 12th, yeah.
We'll have to have that up here.
Is that what your back is telling you? Okay. All right. We ready to, are there any open space updates? Please say no, please say no.
No.
Okay. Are there any compliance updates of significance? Pleasant Street Mills, Lathrop?
I did get 2 memos on Friday, for Holistic and Lovin.
Loven? They are actively doing stuff at the Loven property as of.
Yeah, I just got construction inspection logs.
Right, so actually I will comment, hold on, for Loven, that there's equipment and stockpiles
Okay.
on site as of Saturday.
Okay.
So, they are, now that they're actively working on site, they need to maintain compliance with their SWIP or the SWIP-like requirements. And if you would be so kind as to notify them of to remind them.
Mm-hmm.
Were they supposed to give us notice?
I don't know if they were supposed to give us notice that they were starting up again, but we may or may not get a SWIP event at the end of the latter part of this week, depending on how the forecast plays out. So what were you?
Oh, and then we had for 7F on River Street.
Grand, yep.
So I know.
Jay, you did a site
I
visit?
did a site visit for the erosion protection, so he was all set.
What
He was
day?
gonna- Wednesday.
Haha, good job. Thank
And
you.
he was going to talk to his contractor and give us 48-hour notice before he began. So I don't know if you heard anything.
No.
All his materials were in place. His stone pieces, the concrete pieces were stacked up.
Okay.
Does that mean we're back to low water? Or he's
Yes.
just forging
Yeah.
ahead?
He was back.
It's been dry for a couple of weeks, so. Pretty dry. Okay.
And then
CPA?
what was the other one?
Holistic?
Industries.
Mm-hmm.
Framing the walls and front portion of the building, including the roof trusses. Overall site remains in the same condition as previous reports. Silt fence and straw wattles barriers are now still in place with no signs of any erosion, no signs of any silt or soils within the wetlands from the site.
Mark Reed tonight said they had done no site work. They're still trying to do with the building.
Okay. It's hard to tell if anything is happening at the One Ferry Street.
We believe it is.
believe
It
there's some
kind of looked like
site
something
work.
was happening.
Oh, yeah,
So
Okay.
can you check the city's records to see if either order has been recorded? I have
Okay.
no recollection of,
Oh, these are
Receiving notice?
city projects?
this is One Ferry Street, so this is
Lofts LLC.
One Industrial Lofts LLC.
Okay.
Because if they haven't been, they're not valid.
That's
They started putting conduit on the side of the building for power hookup
Yeah.
a couple of days ago or a day ago.
Okay, so that's
Yeah,
work.
there's some, yeah, there's work.
It looks like they're working on that building right along that
The one in the
canal.
corner there.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
Put
They're
in your
working on something right
telephone
along
pole,
Ferry, too.
Okay. That can be exempt. Okay, so then, any updates from Easthampton Park Solar, 232 Park Street?
No.
No. River Valley Co-op, any updates?
No.
And Pump House demo?
Still there.
Oh my, but it was an emergency. So, Ken, can you follow up on the recording of the order for the Pump House demo?
Okay.
I don't know if it's been recorded. Jeff Bagg might have handled that.
Okay.
Just trying to stay on before they are out there doing work. I know it's an administrative technicality, but if you're gonna go through the exercise of getting a permit, you might as well make it valid.
Yeah. I'll check that out.
Thanks. General business, meeting minutes, June 24th, 2019.
You were here.
You were here.
Wow, that's
Dan, Deanna, and I were
amazing. That was
not.
a heck of a week.
More so than right now. Oh.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes of 6/24/2019.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay. Quick comments. The Commission's receipt of a notice of intent, DEP file number 151297, filed by Easthampton Park Solar 1 LLC for solar project at Westview Terrace, map 165, lot 47. Filed April 10th, 2018, identified as date of filing by Mass DEP. As of this date, they have not made any public notice, therefore the Commission is not including this on its next agenda. Next, the Commission is in receipt of a notice of intent filed by the City of Easthampton, Mass DEP file number 151306 for River Street. Applicant is seeking an order of conditions for work related to maintenance activities including spreading of gravel millings in potholed areas within the existing road footprint, and then the use of a grader to level the road to existing grades within bordering land subject to flooding and riverfront area, filed 7/1/2019. Application to be included on the July 22nd, 2019 meeting agenda, pending proper public notice. Did that ad go in the paper? Do we know?
I wasn't able to confirm.
Okay.
But as far as my conversation with the city engineer, it did.
And were abutters notified?
For the River Street project? Yeah, well, the questions that were posed to me, make it sound as if they were preparing them.
Okay.
I will confirm.
Can you, yeah, if we could confirm before Monday's hearing date, that would be helpful. Okay. And then receipt of a bundled notice of intent filed by Easthampton, City of Easthampton, DEP file number 151. I think this came through.
It just came through this evening, actually. I just saw it pop up. And it has now...
151307. So the DPW is endeavoring to obtain a generic order of conditions for routine maintenance activities that are not otherwise exempt. Filed 7/1/2019, to be included on the July 22nd, 2019 meeting agenda, pending proper public notice. And I think for that one, because there's no actual work proposed, it's just the legal notice in the paper.
Correct.
Enforcement order, 298 Loudville Road.
So,
Which one is this?
the, I think one of the first few things that I did in my first few weeks here, I prepared a cease and desist order for 298 Loudville Road. There was an emergency certification issued on September 11th last year, which allowed for a permanent bank and slope stabilization, removal of fallen trees and vegetation, grading of existing soils along the slope, remediation of drainage issues, installation of geotextile fabric and slope honoring as needed to secure the slope according to that approved plan and method for that address. And the work was supposed to be completed by the end of fall 2018. On June 11th in 2019, city planner observed and documented work illegally, performed inconsistent with the methods in the plan as approved under emergency certification at that meeting in 2018. This letter was sent to the property owner with the intention of basically saying come to the meeting and address the work that's been done, or an enforcement order would be issued. I didn't receive a green card back because I did send this certified mail to the property owner.
What day did you send it, do you know?
July 1st. And no contact via email or phone call, to my understanding.
Do you have the certified mail tracking number?
Yes, that's
The article number, so we could,
downstairs.
so you could plug that into the Postal Service's website and see if it was.
Okay.
What the status is.
Sometimes it takes a while for them to come back.
It can, but the updates to the website are a little, I think, more immediate. And they'll try
I'll
up to 3
confirm
times
that.
to deliver it.
But I guess, you know, I prepared an enforcement order based on that language. I didn't necessarily fill out any of the findings other than activities being conducted in area subject to protection, or the order. I prepared a signature form should the commission want to issue that today, or we can put it on for the 22nd.
I'd like to put it on for the 22nd, only because I want to see what the status is of.
That mailing?
Yeah.
Okay.
To be fair.
You know what I'm gonna ask?
What's Michael gonna ask?
Were we doing a cease and desist for the other Gall property?
That subdivision? Jeff has.
Jeff was gonna go out there.
Yeah, has me looking at these plans, these files, trying to figure out the various set of conditions. I wasn't able really to decipher anything because it's literally files of plans that don't necessarily make sense with the original order. So I don't know if the file is wrong or whatnot. So I've been doing research in regards to what has been recorded, and I don't have anything to. I can draft something based on your institutional knowledge, but I'm not really.
Well, there's certainly nothing open.
Right, there, I guess what it
Regardless of
could
whether
boil
there
down
was
to
ever
from
an
a
order.
Wetlands Protection Act perspective is there's no open valid permit.
Okay.
And so anything within 200 feet of the mean annual high water line and or 100 feet of the bank and adjacent BVW is a violation. And the where we're getting hung up is getting an understanding of what's going on the ground out there relative to those areas as an actual measurement.
Does he need a work order to start development?
Needs an order of conditions if he's going to be within 200 feet of the stream or 100 feet of bank or BVW. You know, if there's a big area of BVW that juts out, it could jut out, the buffer zone could extend further than the riverfront area.
And then anything else is another area, other department?
So the question the city has been trying to figure out, I think, is if and how the stormwater ordinance might apply.
Correct.
Maybe the disturbance is so large.
Because of the disturbance, and when the subdivision was approved versus built, and if it's grandfathered or not.
Like planning board,
Yeah.
There's no.
you think there's
deadline
expiration date on?
that you have to build within.
But they did start the subdivision within. It's part of the.
But then you can.
I don't know. That's really not my
Yeah, I don't know.
area of expertise. So.
Okay, so I will draft something for, I guess then maybe it starts as a cease and desist letter and then, or do you want to proceed with usually I think you like to give the property owner a chance to discuss with the commission.
I mean, that's the intent, that there's no bad intentions.
Sure, okay.
We have a meeting next.
Monday, yeah. Because we didn't have one last week. Because we didn't have a
Week off.
quorum. Something about
I thought I was
vacations.
gonna get to go on vacation from. Okay.
Can I I know it's not on the agenda, but we received an email from the city planner in regards to conservation restrictions for the
Okay.
following meeting.
Okay.
So that'll be on the next
Okay.
hearing, and I know that someone related to that project, that the city received a park grant for East Street, based on that email, if I recall correctly, which requires the Conservation Commission to sign off on
Okay.
conservation restrictions. So that'll be on the next agenda.
Okay, if there's any more detailed information you can provide.
Yes, I'll provide
That
that
would be helpful.
to the commission.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Is there a second?
I'm not
Second.
sure.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved.